back to What Arty Noobs with General Disturbance. This is the IS-4. It's a Tier 10 Soviet heavy tank. It's located on the south spawn of Lakeville, and it's under the command of Captain Ashstorm. Yes, he's riding again, this time in a heavy tank, and having a bit of fun with the IS-4. Game on. Now this tank is armed with a 122mm gun. It's capable of doing 440 alpha, and it will penetrate 258mm of armor with standard AP. With the heat rounds, that goes up to 340mm. It's basically a IS-2 on steroids, you could say, because it's kind of beefed up version of the IS-2 in many ways. You can see the design cues. It's basically got that same central driver's position right in the center, and everything else about it just appears IS-2. Well, first shot on the T62 penetrates in for 483, a high roll, and the T62 is having a great deal of difficulty trying to get anything damage back. And oh, that one hit the tracks. That was unfortunate. The shell dipped into the tracks, and oh, the T62A's given up and decided to go for an early swim. In fact, it says down here that he crashed, and he's Captain Ashstorm said, "What an idiot!" Well, he was, because he basically just gave away his tank by crashing off the edge. He was definitely going to drown either way, but what a waste! Total waste of a tank when you've got so much opportunity to earn damage, but you go and do something so silly. He could have continued to fight even if he was up against tremendous opposition, but by doing what he did, all he did is potentially spot 9 enemy vehicles, which might earn him a scout medal, but not much else. Okay, the enemy are now in sight, and we've got an Object 268 version 4. First shell hits him, but unfortunately doesn't do any damage. It looked like it hit the tracks again. Captain Ashstorm's decided to switch to the heat ammo. He needs the extra pen. Okay, 268. Oh, what a shot! 465, high roll, gets the kill. 2684 is no more. And that's actually changed the dynamics now, because it means that they can push up on these guys on the corner. STB's got no defense to this shell. It will just carve its way straight through him. He's very thin armor. He's only a medium. The Type 5H is a little better off because he's got some mass behind him, but the STB-1, look, he can't even penetrate in return. His 105mm shell is doing virtually nothing to Captain Ashstorm's armor. And if he pops his head out again, he will be out of the game just like that. Okay, we're going to have a go at the Type 5. Well, the STB was brave enough to pump out. I think he knew that Captain Ashstorm was looking elsewhere at that moment. But he won't push out whilst we're doing what we're doing at the moment. Now he will, because obviously we're exposed, because we're now engaged, and we get hit in the tracks by the AMX-50B. I have the feeling that STB... Oh, I'm pretty sure the STB's actually been killed. Yes, he has been killed, so we don't have to worry about him anymore. But oh, we've lost 2 of our teammates. The Object 780 and the Object 268 both died. So we're firing into the shoulders of the Type 5, which of course are the weak spot. And we're now trying to use the Rex as good cover, and they're working. They just need to get that spot there. Yep, no problem, going through the weak spot. Need to cover. Couldn't stop that. In fact, actually, we've taken 2 rounds from the 50B, but we pumped one back. Oh, 3 shots hit us. That 50B has been very, very expensive. He fired APCR at us, and each of the rounds hit, but now he's vulnerable. Of course, he's in reload. And our Centurion Action 10's moved up, but he just took a big hit from the Type 5. But using the Rex as cover, now we can just dominate them, and the Type 5 is down. There's a 705 over there. I think Captain Ashstorm can probably see him, but he's not firing at him. He's going for the 50B, and he puts one into the side of his bustle, and he's out the game. So Captain Ashstorm just under 5k. The 705 hits him. Load it. Takes him out of the game in return. 4 kills now for Captain Ashstorm. He's really enjoying this IS-4. He's only lost half of his hit points, but he traded them well. And now his team have got the town and they're pushing out towards the enemy. And there's little the enemy can do. In fact, now he's getting an assist from the Centurion Action 10, who obviously knows that an IS-4 is worth its weight in armor. This is a 66-ton tank with very, very heavy armor indeed. Very difficult to take down. He's decided to push straight across the field. Okay, we've got a Guerrilla 15, which is, as you know, a kind of Waffenträger. It's on the Waffenträger line. It's basically a Panther tank with a huge gun on it. In fact, now our team, our 430U's decided he wants the Guerrilla 15. He's going in for the kill. He's already got some damage. He might take some damage from that Guerrilla, but yes, it's all happening now at the enemy's, at the end of the valley. Now, Captain Ashstorm's trying to get position so he can cover himself against any enemy tanks coming back. There is an E5 on the way back, as well as a Jaegeru. The 430U has managed to do some damage, and the Guerrilla did go down. But now we've got this Jaegeru. Here he comes. Now, we can punch through the armor. No problem. 480, a high roll. So he just waits until the guy gives him the opportunity. It's the reload that might be a problem. 11.03 is the standard reload. Oh, and the kill shot goes to the Object 140 who's next to us. Captain Ashstorm's reload is 10.07 seconds. He takes a big hit from the E3's 155mm gun. Gonna have to go around the corner and deal with the E3. Get the position, and he can take the guy out. Lower plate. Yes! And that means there's only one enemy left. It's the 277, and here he comes. We're not loaded yet, but oh! And that is the end of the game for Captain Ashstorm. Here's the end of battle stats, and that was an ace tanker game for Captain Ashstorm in the IS-4. He managed to get a Bruiser medal for getting at least 5 critical hits. In fact, he managed to get 8. He also got a spotter badge for spotting at least 1,000 hit points of damage, a duelist for taking down 2 tanks who damaged him, a fighter badge for getting at least 4 kills. He ended up with 5, just 1 short of getting a top gun and 1/3 of the enemy team, as well as a fire for effect for doing more damage than the hit points to his own vehicle, and a shell proof for blocking more damage than the hit points to his own vehicle. On top of that, he managed to get a steel wall for blocking the most damage in that game, at least 11 hits, over 1,000 hit points of damage, but didn't get the high caliber. We'll find out why any second now. Well, we can see he definitely got the highest damage in the game. He got 6,202 hit points of damage by the end. The next highest scorer being the 60 TP Lewandowski Go with 4,439. And the third highest damage went to the Kranvan with 4,222. Now, did he actually get the high caliber? Well, no, he didn't get it. And there is, I'd have to check this, but I think he did have 20%. It didn't come up during the game. But so, he definitely got the highest, and the Kranvan got the third highest. When it came to kills, he definitely got the highest on that one. 5 kills went to Captain Ashstorm. 3 kills went to the Object 140, who stole that one away from him. He actually did take away the top gun that he would have got otherwise when he'd taken out the Jaegeru. And 2 kills went to the Object 430U, the AMX-50B on the enemy team, and the Kranvan. And when it came to base XP, yep, he got that one as well. So 1,380 to Captain Ashstorm, 1,099 went to the 60 TP, and they were the only 2 players who managed to get over 1,000 base in the game. So technically, he's got the top in all 3 columns, but unfortunately no high caliber. So we'll just have to wait to see exactly what the records say. When it came to details, he fired 20 rounds, got 20 direct hits on the enemy, and 16 penetrations. Damage of 6,202 hit points, of which 483 were at more than 300 meters. He received 13 hits from the enemy during the battle. Four of those were penetrations, 9 non-penetrations, and 3,860 hit points of damage blocked by armor. 1 enemy vehicle was spotted, 8 enemy vehicles were hit, and 5 were killed. 1,978 hit points of damage assistance. That was the spotting assist. He earned 64,850 credits for the battle, but after repair, ammunition, resupply, and consumables, and yes, he did have to fire a fair amount of premium ammo to take out the enemy tanks, but he did so very efficiently. He actually ended up with a loss of only 33,329 credits, 1,380 XP, and 2,070 experience points altogether. Let's have a quick look at the armor of the IS-4. Well, this is the Beastie, and yes, it does very much look like an IS-2, which has been kind of expanded. You know, it looks like somebody's taken a bicycle pump, attached the end, and pumped it up, given it a bit of extra inflation. Well, yes, it's very, very strong armor. You can see here the impact armor on the front of the upper plate is 155 millimeters, but it's coming out at 237. The lower plate is actually 160 millimeters, but it's coming out at 216. But you can see they've got these two plates here, which are actually still only 180, but because of the angling and everything, they actually come out at 250, 255 thereabouts. We've got the driver's area, which used to be a weak spot, but it's actually even a stronger point here because it's 240 millimeters. They've welded extra armor on top of where the driver would normally be to protect him from any people trying to take him out specifically. There are two still weak spots there. You can see the impact point there, 0 armor. It's actually got a 140 millimeters, it's showing 14 millimeters, but it's showing ricochet, because if the shell did hit that spot or normally it would just bounce off, but it's showing effective armor of 371 millimeters, so you're very unlikely to actually get through that. But you can see the thick armor at the front of the turret is incredibly thick. It's 250 millimeters of armor coming out of effective 342, and that's the flat part next to the mantlet, and it's on both sides, so very strong. Then of course, as the armor goes around the turret and becomes angled, you can see 213 millimeters actually becomes as high as 530, with more likely the shell will bounce off the side because it's just coming in at the wrong angle. The side armor of the tank on the shoulders, it's 160 millimeters coming out at 240, but it's only when you actually get round to the sides of the tank you can see it's 160 millimeters coming out at 160, because it's basically flat. There's no angled armor except on these shoulder parts here, but it's not very much in the way of angling. It's almost flat. You can see the sides of the turret at the rear are a little easier to get through. It's 200 millimeters of armor, but coming out at 233. It's still tough, but at the very rear of the turret, it's only 170 millimeters coming out at effectively 190. You're much better off just shooting into the rear of the tank, which is only 120 millimeters coming out at 135. And of course, the area around the transmission is only 100 millimeters coming out at 112. So let's have a quick look at the live version just to see how strong this thing is from the front. If you're looking at this tank from the front, you'd look at that armor and you'd say, well, it's virtually impossible to get a shell through from the turret. So if this is hull down, you are in a lot of trouble. But this tank only has 6 degrees of gun depression, so it's unlikely to use a hull down position because it wouldn't be effectively able to do it. But if this tank is angled, look at that thickness of armor. The angling actually massively increases the effectiveness of this armor, makes it very difficult to get through, except by going through that shoulder area, and that's only if he over angles. If he doesn't over angle, if he just looks at you from that direction, you can see it's very difficult to get a shot through that armor at all, mainly because it's just so thick. So that's the live version. It's a very strong tank armor-wise. Let's have a quick look at the modules. That's better. Okay, now if we look at the modules, you can see the driver's sitting up front on his own with that extra armor around him, but he's actually got ammo racks in the shoulders of the tank. And of course, as I said, if you over angle and the shell goes through the shoulder, then you're going to hit the ammo rack, which is a bit disconcerting. Then, of course, we've got further ammo racks around the shoulders, which, again, not very good, but I suppose it's very thick armor. And there's one big ammo rack down below in the hull, which I suppose you might be able to get at if you go just behind the first roller and through the very sides of the vehicle, which are about only 160 millimeters. If we look elsewhere, we can see that the driver is in the center. We've got the gunner on the right-hand side, tank commander directly behind him, and he's got that very tiny cupola. It's not very much there. Very, very difficult to get at. And we've got the loader on the left-hand side of the turret, and he's got an ammo rack directly surrounding him, which is the ready rack, and the tank commander's got the radio directly behind him. We've got the engine at the back, sandwiched between the fuel tanks, and transmission behind that. So if you do aim a tank around for the rear, you are more than likely going to hit the transmission or the engine, and that will slow it down, but it probably won't stop it unless you can set fire to the thing. And to set fire to the thing, you'd have to get that shell through the sides of the vehicle into the fuel tank or into the engine itself. All in all, it's a very, very strong tank. You play it like an IS-2. You would angle to try and give yourself an increase in armor. You wouldn't play hull down because you've only got 6 degrees of gun depression. You really haven't got enough to work with, unless, of course, you could find a position where you could shoot to one side of the vehicle to get artificial gun depression. But other than that, play it like Captain Ashstorm did, and you should come off very, very well indeed. In fact, he did angle his tank at the right moments, and he, of course, used the wrecks around him as natural cover to fight from behind. And he did lose some hit points to some of the enemy tanks that were there, but that was only because they were assaulting him 2 at a time, and he was trying to fend them off, and they were autoloaders, whereas he has that very long reload, that 11.03 seconds reload for standard, but it was 10 seconds for him. But it's still a long time for a 122mm gun. I think it was probably 2-part ammunition, which is why it was taking so long. It was so busy during that battle, I never actually got to say anything about the IS-4 itself. It was the Object 701. There was 2 prototypes for it, started in 1943, December 1943, and there was 2 prototypes by April 1944. They made 2 more by 1945 and gave it different armor and a different gun. And they built about 235 to 258 of them. But because they didn't really... It was not that they didn't trust it. They actually did give it a job out in the Far East, guarding the border with China. But it wasn't a frontline tank. It wasn't placed in the front line against the Allies in Europe. So it may be they didn't trust it as much as they trusted the IS-3 and the other tanks that they actually had designed and built, things like the T-10 for that matter, which were actually built in sufficient numbers to fend off any attack by NATO or any further war that might break out in Europe. So I hope you enjoyed that replay by Captain Ashstorm. Thanks very much for sending it in. If you did enjoy the replay, please give it a like, do subscribe to our channel, leave a little comment down below because it feeds the algorithm, and thank you for watching.